The red dust of Kepler 442b swirled around Colt Dawson's boots as he approached the old stable at the edge of his ranch. The twin suns were setting, casting long shadows across the terraformed plains that had taken humanity 3 generations to tame. He'd come out here to check on the livestock, genetically modified cattle that could breathe the thin atmosphere. But something was wrong. The animals were agitated, clustering at the far end of their enclosure, their eyes wide with an emotion Colt recognized: fear. He pushed open the stable door slowly, his hand instinctively moving to the plasma revolver at his hip. The hinges creaked, a sound that seemed too loud in the sudden silence. Inside, the air felt different, charged with something he couldn't quite name. Then he heard it. A soft, chittering sound like glass bells rubbing together coming from the empty stall at the back. Colt moved forward cautiously, his weathered face set in hard lines. 40 years on the frontier had taught him that surprises were rarely pleasant. When he peered over the stall door, his breath caught in his throat. 4 creatures huddled in the corner, their scales shimmering with an iridescent quality that seemed to capture and reflect the fading light. They were small, no bigger than newborn calves with elongated necks and wings folded tight against their bodies. Their eyes, large, intelligent, and unmistakably terrified, locked onto him. Dragons. Or at least, that's what they looked like to a human mind trying to categorize the alien. The largest of the 4 stepped forward, positioning herself between Colt and the others. She couldn't have been more than a few months old by his estimation, but there was something ancient in her gaze. Her scales were deeper in color, a midnight blue that seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "Easy now," Colt murmured, holstering his weapon. "I'm not going to hurt you." The creature tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. Then, to his complete shock, she spoke. The words came not from her mouth, but directly into his mind, a sensation like cold water trickling down his spine. "Please. Not hurt. Small ones need safe." Colt staggered back, his hand gripping the stall door for support. In all his years on Kepler 442b, he'd never encountered sentient alien life. The planet had been surveyed, declared empty of intelligent species. The Galactic Council had approved human colonization on that basis. "You can talk," he said aloud, then felt foolish. "I am Syra. These are my siblings. Mother gone, father gone. Hunters came." The words painted a picture in Colt's mind, not just the meaning, but flashes of memory. He saw massive creatures, the adult versions of these dragonlings, fleeing across rocky terrain. He saw ships with weapons that turned the sky white with their fury. He saw the adults making a final stand, buying time for their young to escape. Colt felt his jaw tighten. He knew about hunters. The black market trade in exotic alien specimens was lucrative, and Kepler 442b was remote enough that patrols were infrequent. These creatures weren't supposed to exist here, which meant someone had been keeping their presence secret, someone who probably wanted them back. "How long have you been here?" Colt asked. 3 nights. "The small ones are hungry." "I am hungry, but mostly scared." Colt looked at the 4 dragonlings huddled in his stable. Every practical instinct he had screamed at him to contact the authorities, to let someone else handle this problem. His ranch was barely profitable as it was. The last thing he needed was to get involved in something that could bring hunters, or worse, corporate enforcers, to his doorstep. But then he looked into Syra's eyes again and saw something that transcended species: desperation, tempered with dignity. She wasn't begging. She was negotiating, offering trust in exchange for protection. "All right," Colt said finally, surprising himself. "You can stay, but we need to be smart about this." Over the next few weeks, Colt fell into a routine. He fed the dragonlings a mixture of protein supplements and local vegetation that Syra indicated was safe. He reinforced the stable, adding a hidden chamber beneath the floor where they could hide if anyone came snooping. At night he sat with them, and Syra would tell him stories of her world, a place of crystal mountains and singing winds, destroyed when mining corporations discovered rare elements in its crust. The other dragonlings began to warm to him. The smallest one, who Syra called Pip in his mind, would curl up against his leg while he worked on equipment repairs. The humans in the nearest settlement 30 miles away probably wouldn't have understood. They saw this planet as theirs by right, won through terraforming and toil, but Colt was beginning to understand that ownership was more complicated than deeds and declarations. One evening, as the twin suns painted the sky in shades of amber and violet, Sierra approached him while he sat on the porch. She'd grown in the months since he'd found her, now nearly the size of a horse. Her wings, when fully extended, could cast shadows across the entire yard. Colt Dawson, her voice echoed in his mind, formal and measured. I must speak truth to you. What's wrong? Colt set down the fence post he'd been sanding. We are strong now. We can fly far. We can find another place, perhaps a wild place where humans do not go. Colt felt an unexpected pang in his chest. He'd grown attached to these creatures, though he'd never admitted it aloud. That might be safer for you, he said carefully. But I do not wish to go. Sierra settled onto her haunches, her tail curling around her feet in a gesture he'd learned meant she was gathering courage. This place, your stable, your ranch, it feels like the home we lost. You feel like pack. Like family. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. I beg not for survival, Sierra continued, her mental voice softer now. We can survive in the wild. I beg for a home. I beg for you to choose us as we choose you. Colt Dawson, who had spent 20 years alone on this ranch after his wife passed, who had built walls around his heart as strong as the ones around his property, felt those walls crumble. He thought about what it meant to be human, to be capable of compassion that crossed the boundaries of species and world. Maybe that was the real triumph of humanity, not conquering new worlds but making them home for everyone. You don't need to beg, Sierra, he said, his voice rough with emotion. This is your home, for as long as you want it. The dragonling's eyes seemed to glow in the fading light, and for the first time since he'd found them, Colt heard something new in her mental voice. Joy. Then we stay, and we protect this home together. As the stars began to emerge in the alien sky above Kepler 442b, Colt Dawson sat on his porch with a dragon at his side, and felt for the first time in years that he wasn't alone. The frontier was vast and often cruel, but it was also full of possibilities, including the possibility of family in the most unexpected forms. In the stable behind them, 3 young dragonlings slept peacefully, dreaming of crystal mountains and singing winds, while above them, their future unfurled like wings catching the solar winds. Home, after all, wasn't about species or planet of origin. It was about choosing each other day after day under whatever sky fortune provided.